we wanted to take the time to do a video that fully explains support and resistance. Support and resistance are the two concepts that if you learn nothing about trading, you better learn support and resistance. Because if that's all you know, it will help you go a long way in achieving long-term success as a trader in the marketplace. So we have this page with just a couple basic points that we want to discuss before we get into looking at some charts. Now, these might seem very elementary to some, but we feel it's very important to cover these in the most basic detail in the simplest language possible to best exemplify our points. So, first things first, support is the price at which there will most likely be more buyers than sellers. Support is the price at which there will most likely be more buyers than sellers. Resistance is the price at which there will most likely be more sellers than buyers. Again, resistance is the price at which there will most likely be more sellers than buyers. We're putting everything in terms of supply and demand because this is what causes prices to rise and fall. When there are more buyers than sellers, prices rise. aka when there's more demand than supply, prices rise. When there are more sellers than buyers, prices fall. So when there is more supply than demand, prices fall. This is why you will often see stocks bounce near support and turn lower near resistance. Also important is the fact that sometimes support and resistance can be a range of prices and not just one line in the sand type price level. An example is stock XYZ has support between $5 and $5.20 and it has resistance between $6.50 and $6.75. We're not just picking out one price level saying stock XYZ has support at $5.20 and resistance at $6.50. No, there's a range that we're looking to provide support and resistance. In our view, the best way to pick out support is to identify price levels at which a stock has risen from in the past after previously declining towards that price level. Said another way, support is the level at which a stock finally bounces from after downtrending. Say it goes from $7 to $5 and then goes from $5 to $5.50. We now can say, okay, support is around $5. Vice versa. The best way to pick out resistance is to identify price levels at which a stock has fallen from in the past after previously rising towards that price level. So say a stock has gone from $5 up to $7, but now it pulled back to $6.50. So $7 is the price level at which it fell from after previously rising towards it. Now we can say, okay, there is resistance at $7. An important thing to realize is that stocks establish new support and resistance levels every day, and every week, and every month, and every year, every hour, every minute, okay? But some of these levels are more important than others. What determines their importance is really from a psychological perspective. An example is multi-year and multi-week, month lows are more important than multi-week or multi-day lows and highs. The reason is from a psychological perspective. If a support level breaks that hasn't broken in 5 years, that's going to set off a lot more alarms than a support level breaks that is breaking again, for the first time in 2 weeks. I mean, if you just say that to yourself, if it goes below a price that hasn't gone below in 5 years, is that worse than if it goes below a price that hasn't gone below in 5 days? Well, we think the answer to that question is pretty obvious. So, lastly, support and resistance can be picked out. There's evidence of them on all types of charts, whether you're looking at a 5-minute chart, 60-minute chart, daily chart, weekly chart, monthly chart, or yearly chart. Okay? So these are the basic points that we wanted to outline. And now we will go over some charts and talk about how to put the basics to use to actually identify the price levels where support and resistance exist. Now, you always want to look back. To see where a stock might have support or might have resistance, you need to look back at that stock's history. So let's take QQQ for example. Let's look at a 180-day chart. There's a couple resistance levels and support levels. Now again, remember, a resistance level is a price at which a stock has fallen from after previously rising towards it. So the first area that I see resistance on QQQ is right here, around $60. Why? Because that is an area that the price then fell from after previously rising to it. So between June and mid-July, July 7th, QQQ went from 54 up to 60. So therefore, I'm going to put my first resistance line on QQQ is right here. I can identify that. And then QQQ declines and then bounces from this range right here around 56. So that is a support level because support is identifying a price at which a stock has risen from in the past after previously declining. So it's declined towards it and then it's risen towards it. So now moving forward we can say, okay, there is support right around this level. Now, we see what happens obviously is QQQ breaks below this support level. Also, it is unable to get above this resistance level that we pointed out here. It really doesn't get above it. So after it breaks below this support level, it's kind of, now we're just in wait and see mode. Now we need to see where is the next level that it is going to bounce from, okay? And you can see we have a decline down to this level and we get our first bounce. So this is my next support level right here. Oops. I'm going to make this green because this is my current support. I'm going to pause this really fast as we seem to be getting some... Okay, never mind. So the other thing we should know is when support breaks, it can become resistance, and when resistance breaks, it can become support. So previous support, when broken, becomes new resistance. Previous resistance, when broken, becomes new support. Okay? So, with that in mind, remember this level here that was our first support. It broke here, so we then turned that into resistance because, just as we point out, previous support when broken becomes new resistance. So, here is our support and here is our resistance, our new resistance. Now, a profitable strategy in our view is often buying near support and selling near resistance. So if you look at QQQ, you can see that the price rose from, here's our bounce level, and then look what happened. It came back to our support level, and it bounced again beautifully. And then look what happened. It came near our resistance level here, and then retraced back to the support level, and again, it bounced beautifully, all the way back up. Here, it even managed to get above our first resistance, but again, look at where it topped out this time, at this first resistance point from back in July. So if you just imagine that, here's what you got. Okay, this is what we've seen so far. We can already draw these channel lines right here. This is an important concept because most people say, oh, well, how do you know where support and resistance is until after you see it? Well, through the end of August, if this is all the information you had, you still could have mapped out some clear support and resistance levels. And then, as the months played out, you see how this support and resistance came into play. Okay? Now, let's focus more in the short term. Let's take it from a 180-day chart to a 100-day chart. And let's take it from here. Okay. Now, the first thing I see is a move from the bottom here up towards these highs, and there was resistance right around here. QQQ really couldn't stay much above this level. So I'm going to make that a red line. And then my first pullback is to right here. So here's the first bounce. So that's my first support level. I'm simply just taking the first level at which QQQ pulled back from, where it was turned away, where the price fell after previously rising. Just like we say right here. Identify the price at which a stock has fallen after previously rising. And then I'm taking the first support level. I'm identifying the first price level at which the stock has risen from after previously declining. So here we declined and then we rose. So here is my first support level that I can make. I'm going to color it green to exemplify support. And here we are. Now look how this plays out. We've got a nice little range here of 55.80 for support and 58.25 for resistance. Now again, notice that it's not just a clear-cut line in the sand. We did break above it a little bit, but we weren't able to sustain the move. So, you know, this speaks to our point that resistance can be a range of prices. Not just one price level, but an actual range of prices. And you can see that when QQQ got above it and then declined back towards our support level, it bounced near support. It didn't come hit our support price like a nail on the head, but as it approached the price level that it had previously bounced from, the range, the price range, it bounced again. You can see this. Here's one bounce from support. Here's a fall from resistance. Here's a second bounce from support. A second fall from resistance. A third bounce from support. And a third fall from resistance. And then look what happens here. Now we have a break below resistance. Okay? So we're going to turn this channel line here, now that we've moved to November, into our new resistance, because previous support becomes new resistance. And now we need to wait for the downtrend to stop and to get our first bounce, and that's going to be our first support. And you can see this happens right here around 11:25. We get 3 candles in a little range right here where we get a bounce from. So we're going to put our channel lines kind of in this range right here. We'll color these green. And again, let's go with this right here. So this is all you have right now. So through December 2nd, this is the information you're able to work with. Now, nobody can predict the future, but we can use support and resistance to help us make sound decisions. Now, based on the chart history, I would say to myself as a trader, okay, December 2nd, here we are. We're in this new resistance channel. We've broken back above it. And in the past, the chart has shown that when it gets into this range, it tends to pull back. So maybe I can get an entry closer to this support level. That would be my thinking. That would be my personal thinking. And if not, I'll wait for a clean breakout above this resistance before buying, because once resistance is broken, that becomes new support. But I'm not going to buy in this range because that's kind of no man's land to me. I'm going to either wait for a pullback towards support, or I'm going to wait for a breakout above resistance and have new support get established. Now let's see. Look how this played out. Oops. So we were at December 2nd, right? That's where we were looking. So that's right here is what we were looking at. You can see, sure enough, the stock, or the ETF rather, QQQ, declined right at that resistance level. And look where it pulled back to. It pulled back right to our support level. Okay? So we got that nice pullback right there. And instead of buying in no man's land, now you bought near support. And you broke above resistance here. And then look, you've broken above this resistance here. So now both of these lines, we've gotten a clear move above this range. So now we've got numerous support levels to work with. And, you know, this just helps make you better decisions overall. Let's focus on another stock. Apple. Or no, we'll do a penny stock this time. ATRN. This one's been very liquid. So we'll focus on the extremely short term. You have a couple prices here that the stock has risen from and been rejected from, and so on and so forth. So we had our first big move here was from a penny up to 5.5, and then we declined in price. So that 5.5 area is going to be my first known resistance point that I see. So now I have resistance. So now I want to see where has the stock, where does it start to bounce from? Well, ATRN makes a big bounce from this level right here. So that is my support. Now, in one day, ATRN breaks resistance. So again, like we've discussed, once resistance is broken, it now becomes new support. you can see this pretty clearly. It's like magic. Look what happened. After resistance was broken, ATRN pulled back to our support perfectly. We're looking at these 2 days right here, these 3 days. So resistance was broken, so it becomes new support. And look at how well that previous resistance held as support. Now, again, I want to find where my resistance is. This high is where ATRN first pulled back from. Right here. So, ATRN pulls back from this high, bounces from previous resistance, which is now our new support, and then breaks this resistance level. So now, we're going to turn this price level into support. And look again what happens the next 2 days. ATRN rises up to here and then pulls back, so I can make a resistance line right here. And pulls back to previous resistance. And again, previous resistance acts as support. And, you know, it broke that level as well the next day. So now that becomes a new support level. And just so on and so forth. Now, ATRN has just really started to run now. But before today's move, you still had clear levels to watch. And it's all about being able to clearly identify price levels at which support and resistance exist. Now, we've looked at daily charts. Let's look at a weekly chart. We're going to use Priceline. Now, Priceline has some pretty clear-cut support and resistance levels. Well, first things first, there's this resistance level right here. You can see that the stock rallied and rallied. We're looking at a 2-year weekly chart. So from July 2010 through April 2011, it rallied pretty much uninterrupted up to this high here. And then that's the first price level at which it started to decline. So I'm going to make that my first key resistance level. And then I want to see, well, where did Priceline start to bounce from? Where was the first real bounce? Well, it declined and declined, and then here, right here, we got a nice bounce. So this is where I'm going to put support. Now you might say to yourself, well, that's all well and good. That's all well and good if I knew the information at that time. But if I didn't, I couldn't have played it. Well, that's true, but this is why a lot of patience is involved in trading. So let's say that all you had was this action right here. So true, you might have missed being able to buy at this opportunity or being able to sell at this opportunity, but now we can use our identification of support and resistance on Priceline to aid us in the future for when we buy and when we sell. Well, Priceline rallied to resistance and couldn't break above it, so that wasn't a good spot to start buying. So I'd say to myself, okay, well, if it comes back towards my support level, I'll buy it, or if it can break above resistance, I'll buy it as well. Well, look at what happened over the next couple months. Priceline pulled back perfectly to our support level. Again, it's not just a line in the sand price level, it's more of a price range. But the general range is going to be around, you know, this low of 450 or so. So 440 to 450 was the low right there. Okay, and then we bounced up towards resistance. Then we pulled back again. 449, 411, but it didn't stay there very long at all and actually closed that week at 467. So again, you know, 450. Then we bounced near resistance, pulled back. Now look, here we are again. Pull back down to support and bounce pretty beautifully at our support range around 450. And look now, we've actually started to break past resistance. So, you know, daily charts and weekly charts will tell you different things. And that's why, it's very important to look at all of them. Now, let's look at an intraday chart. Say you're day trading and you want to graph where support and resistance are. The same concepts apply. You still want to take prices at which the stock has fallen from in the middle of the day and prices at which the stock has risen from in the middle of the day. So here we've got a 60-minute chart. And the first thing I see is a rise up to this price level here in SPY on the 60-minute 10-day chart from 130.40 up to 132, and then a subsequent decline. So this range right here was my first clear-cut resistance level, right? But then look what happens. SPY gets above it, okay? Now, remember, when we break above resistance, it becomes new support. So look what we had here. We get a rally, and then we have a decline, right? So we break above the resistance point, so we turn that into new support like we did. We changed it from red to green. And now we have our new resistance here. So if this is all the information you had up until this point, you'd say, okay, SPY is near resistance. I'm going to wait because I'm going to try and get it closer to support, or I'm going to wait for a breakout above resistance before buying. Well, look what happened. SPY pulled back pretty much right to support. Our previous resistance did act as new support. And you can see we got ourselves a much better entry. And then the next day, it actually broke above that resistance level. So now we're going to turn this line into new support. And the price gapped up the next day and then pulled back from about this range right here. So here's our first new resistance. Now what's interesting on SPY and what can be tricky here is you'll notice that it never did pull back to this new support level that we had mapped out. But what it did do is it pulled back from this high, and then it started to bounce from this low here. Now remember, stocks establish new support and resistance levels every day, every minute, every hour, every second, okay? So just because it didn't pull back to this support level doesn't mean it didn't bounce from a support level. The best way to identify support is to identify a price level at which a stock has risen from after previously declining towards that price level. Well, here's our previous decline, and now we have risen from this low up to these highs. So even though we didn't pull back all the way to this support level, we now can identify new support at this low right here. This is really an important concept to understand, is that new support will always get established somewhere. It might not be where old support was, but support is getting established all the time, and so is resistance. Now, we broke above this resistance here, so this is going to become our new support, right, on this breakout. Look at how it acts as support on this occasion here and on this occasion here. Now, where's our resistance? Well, here's the rally, and then here's the price at which the price declined. So these highs here. And then we never really got above it, only for an hour or so. So again, we also have resistance here at these highs. And now you can see how clearly this is played out. We broke through first support here, but look at this support that came into play that we showed you a few moments ago. Look at these bounces here. Beautiful bounce off of that support level. And in a rally, but once again, notice where we're stopping out on the rally. Right here at this resistance line. These are all lines that we could have clearly drawn before any of this other price action. We could have drawn this Friday at 12 o'clock. Friday, February 3rd is what we're looking up to now. From Thursday, and here we are, and now you already have this established, okay? And you can see how it plays out. So the reason I'm showing everybody that is to, kind of protest the idea that, oh, you can't know where support and resistance is until after the fact. This is true, but if you're able to accurately pick out support and resistance on more of an intermediate basis, they will often come into play later on, and you can develop a trading strategy around those. So hopefully this video helps people understand where to establish their support lines and resistance lines and aids them in their trading.